Diolch.
Yes, my lord.
So I just thought that I'd talk to you a little bit about all the good work you've been doing. You want to tell me about it?
Well, this started really a long time ago in the 70s when I started to try and understand why our family name was not the way it should be from the Irish spelling of the name. And then eventually when DNA testing came along, I became more involved with Genealogy Ireland, which was having conferences in Dublin starting in 1913, but I came out for the first time in 2014, excuse me, 2013. In 2014, and then I came over here for several years for every one, and then obviously visiting Roots area over here in Rosmuc. My great grandfather supposedly was from Roskita, and we had a family history saying something about Dog Island, and so I kind of was doubtful about that, but I haven't any better evidence. But so they started testing Halloran's, the Manions. Dr. Joe Manion in the East Galway has asked me to manage his surname project, so I've done a lot of testing for Manions. And then the local community, Peter knows very much about those because he's very helpful in getting me to get other people to test.
So Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you met and what you've been
I
up to?
met Jim when I came home from America about 13 years ago. I took a course on computers, didn't know much about computers, and didn't know how to turn them on actually, but I took a computer at adult education and scribed there, and there was Ireland next to no government was doing it, and I put a little sentence up there if anybody needs help. And this guy Jim Holland got in touch with me, and that's about 7 years ago now.
It's been a while. Yeah.
8 years ago.
Do you want to say something in? Do you want to say anything in Irish?
Let me finish this first, and then I'll say the Irish.
Okay.
So then, myself and Jim were working together for a couple of years. He paid for a lot of DNA around Rosmuc, Connemara, spent a lot of money on it. And about 2 years ago, we started a group called Rosmuc Area Genealogy and DNA, and Noel Murphy came on board. He started the site, and the three of us have been working on it since. We have 1,300 members at the moment, and growing every week.
Yeah, a lot of the diaspora have joined up and trying to reconnect with the roots.
And my people are from, there's about 19 families of Manions in Kilbrickin. Hannig sé steachas na cric, vi sé a Rosmuc nach fi lí a pápen fain na hé na chrochu agus steachas Kilbride, Clambar, Fabrak, Thebson, Connemara agus fóscaúra acu has Rosmuc agus taúra acu na mrá special fósí a seachleid mór le molla an ceú rua. Agus táid I ggéar bh dóireach mar tá sé fialach na mráil. Rééis gona féidir an mat an éimach in rodíach. Na mráin teach éis.
So what's next?
So I have been surname projects for many of the families out here. Grealish, Nee, Manion, Halloran, have members. A few others I can't think of right now off the top of my head, but it's quite a span of families that connect back here to Rosmuc as well. Some of these families are from wider regions of Ireland.
Well, we got the Nees, the Sullivans, all the major names in Rosmuc, like Henry, Nees, Joyce's, Grealish.
And what do you like? What do you like about doing this kind of work?
It keeps me out of the pub.
Keeps me off the pub, and it keeps the pressure at the door, and especially here in the winter time when it's miserable days, and it's very interesting finding out stories about old people and the past in Rosmuc, and we're finding a lot of family history.
Yeah,
some tragic stories, some great stories, some funny stories.
But helping a lot of living people reconnect back to other cousins that they've lost track of because they're more than 3 generations distant.
Even my own first cousins once moved from Boston, outside of Boston. I introduced them to each other a couple of weeks ago. If one of the fathers moved down to Tennessee when he was young, and he had a family down there, and he never back to Boston much. And I introduced both their kids to each other, and one of them is in Georgia, one was in Boston, one was in New York, and one was in California. And we had a little on Messenger. We all talked for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and it's a long lost family, and we're getting surprises too along the way, but we have to keep that quiet.
And is it amazing to think of, I suppose, the people who left Rosmuc all those years ago and left Connemara all those years ago?
Oh, there's thousands.
Yeah, my great grandfather
Tens of
left in 1858 and went to Wisconsin. His brother was already there, and then he had some others follow on after that. But so it's became larger families and somewhat disconnected, and you can choose your friends, but you can't always choose your relatives. So some didn't stay as well attached to each other, but my family tree has, with extended family, over 7,000 people in it.
Wow.
I've got over 200 trees that I've built for families here in Rosmuc. Some of the descendants, still looking for the descendants of some of those people, because it was built off the 1901-1911 census, and then the parish records up to 1840 when Rosmuc started recording them, and then the civil records from 1864 to where the privacy rules come into effect. But I've been able to add most of those records into the tree, and then sometimes looking for still the living descendants that are around now.
Yeah. What were you going to say there, Peter?
It seems like with all the DNA tests we're doing, like the Manions now from Kilbricken here, Joe Manion was telling me that the Manions came to Connemara, the Ballyhinch. They were horsemen for the Martins, and they scattered from. There seems to be a line from Rosmuc to Cashel, all the way to Clifton, and they're from DNA. We're finding out that if you go back 4 or 5 generations, they're the same family. They're the common ancestors about 4 or 5 generations ago, and it seems like from Quaggan to Clada, from Tulmacady to the Arden Islands, they're all connected one way or the other. And in more days, some of them more than ways than one. There's 2, 3, they're connected. And that tells, like, it looks in the DNA that they're closely related, but because they're intermarriages and all that.
Yeah, first cousin and second cousin marriages have a big impact on DNA inheritance.
And what's your favorite thing that's happened for you since you started this work?
Meeting Peter.
Yeah, what a joke. Introducing families to each other that lost contact maybe 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And even yesterday, Jim met a guy, John Egan, out near Ballinasloe, and he dropped him off at Mancross. And through my DNA, we found out that, he's 300 years ago?
300 years or more years ago, here's a fellow that never would have been guessing as a genetic relative of Peter's, and it shows up in the DNA.
It's amazing.
It's just incredible.
Yeah. So.
And he's a fantastic fellow, which like Peter,
I don't know about that.
Well, thank you so much. Gur míle maith againn.
Well, thank you for doing
What
this.
do you want to say is your oh
That's me.
That's not the donkey.
That's my cousin.
Yeah, the donkey. Tassil gear on
knuckles
there
and
enough.
asshole, big old bill on it.
Could there Sue?
Come with DNA and listen asshole, big old bill on it.
Agus the bheith English. And so is that the final word then?
Yeah.
Well,
will we leave the final
we
word?
Look forward to making more connections for people.
Then we hopefully will have a genealogy conference, a DNA genealogy conference here in Rosmuc. We're having it this weekend, and hopefully it'll be an annual thing.
Gur míle maith againn.
Good.
Slán.
Slán.